Buffalo Bills make glue out of the Indianapolis Colts 30-20 to go 8-2 on the season. We're going to recap the entire game, go over the stats of the game, our sweet sassy molassy plays of the game, and our wall of fame and wall of shamers. Let's go.
To my friend Nate and all the listeners of this podcast, no one circles the wagons than Nate Escape. Circle the wagons, Buffalo.
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Hey, let's go Buffalo. Hey, let's go Buffalo.
What is up, Bills Mafia? Welcome to another episode of Circling the Wagons, a Buffalo Bills fan podcast, the official podcast of Bills Mafia, the Buffalo fan base. I am your host, Nate. Guys, thank you so much for joining us to talk about this victory. This is a victory edition of Circling the Wagons, and it's a great time to talk about the Buffalo Bills. We have thoughts on the entire game. Like I mentioned, we have thoughts, general overall thoughts. We're going to go over into the stats of the game, sweet sassy molassy plays of the game, wall of famers, wall of shamers, all that fun stuff. And I'm joined for this episode with my co-host, Mike. Mike, what's going on, brother? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. 8-2. It's the
8-2.
first time since 93.
93, yes.
Wow.
Yes, I did see that.
A Super Bowl year.
A Super Bowl year, yes. Yes, they made it to the Super Bowl. We don't need to know. I don't remember exactly how it ends in the Super Bowl, so we don't have to look that up. But yeah, Super Bowl year. Mike, just before we get into the game itself, I mean, what are your thoughts on this team in general? Obviously not 9-0 like the Chiefs are, but a great start to the season, a couple of, bumps in the road with the Ravens and Texans game, but they seem to keep finding ways to win. And I mean, the Colts are the Chiefs are 9-0. They keep finding ways to win. Do you ever get a feeling that this could be the season, or are you really doubting it and you're like, well, I have to see a little bit more from this team before I think that they're at that level?
No, I think given our history, you have to appreciate the good times when they're actually here, right? Because we lived through such crappy times. So it's gravy for us. I think just having Allen week in and week out, don't you? Really?
Yeah,
you have to pinch yourself that we're not only in every game, but it feels like we're a favorite for every game.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's funny, even when we're critical of this team or Josh Allen, if he's not playing, MVP level quarterbacking, I mean, he's still better. Like I didn't love him this game, but he's still better than 28 out of 32 quarterbacks, even at that level. You're right. You have to pinch yourself and realize this is the best time in some of our lives to be a Buffalo Bills fan. Even when it's not perfect, it's still really, really good for sure. Pinch yourself. It reminds me of that. Were you going for the Andy Bernard quote in The Office when he's like, I wish we would know that these were the good old days while they're happening. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you what would it take though? Winning a Super Bowl and then you just want more hedonic treadmill, it would never be enough. So that's why I think game to game.
Game to game. You're right. Live
Yeah.
week to week. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I will
And
say
it's just the playoffs is just such a crapshoot, right? It's not basketball, not baseball where you get these 7-game series. It's just game of inches. That's what makes it. That's why we love it, but that's why it can be so frustrating too.
I mean, Josh Allen could make the playoffs every single season. He's a quarterback and never make the Super Bowl or never win a Super Bowl, right? I mean, that's very, very possible. I mean, think about all those other really great quarterbacks that came through and never won a Super Bowl, like Phillip Rivers, right? Great quarterback, never won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So
it's all right.
I was gonna say, I'm trying to think of another quarterback that's really.
I think
good.
Dan Marino isn't he
he stands? Yeah, he stands. Mm-hmm, sure. He went to a Super Bowl though. Did he go to 2?
He didn't win.
Yeah, he didn't. No, he's a loser. Yeah. But yeah, this let's go into this game, Mike. So it's kind of is interesting. Obviously, the game is a little bit closer than the score seemed. And even though there was 30-13 and there's a garbage time touchdown, this game felt really close. And it felt like the Bills.
But it was for half of it, wasn't it?
It was really close. Did you feel, I know a lot of times you're like, well, it was close, but I didn't feel like the Bills weren't going to win it. Is that kind of how you felt today watching that? Because that's kind of how I felt. I wasn't really in worry. I was just like, come on, guys, you can get through this one. Like we can get a little bit further on, you know?
I don't think there's been a game this year where I didn't think they were gonna. But like the only thing that gives me pause, like we kind of got off of it, but like talking about the team 8-2 Super Bowl, like man, if it wasn't for that Ravens game, I'd feel a lot better. But watching the team, and I do really like McDermott's adjustments at halftime. Like it felt like the Colts are running all over us the first half, and then not so the second half. But yeah, it feels like, and maybe that's Allen, or maybe that's
The defense today.
yeah, like it does seem like they're going to win, right? And that's awesome.
Yeah, it's almost, I know this has been a few seasons with Allen, but it almost feels weird to have that feeling as a Bills fan that like they should win this game, right? Like we're looking at, they're 8-2. They've won 80% of their games. I mean, the Colts are not a terrible team. Like they're a pretty good team, even though they don't have the best record. Like they play teams tough. So I don't look at this game like, I can't believe like you couldn't beat an Indianapolis Colts team that much better, right? Like,
Would
I don't
you
look
rather play them with Richardson or Flacco?
Flacco, I think. I think Richard. Well, it's funny because Richardson's not as good of a passer, but you know that he can run with the ball. Whereas Flacco,
Kinda-
you know,
yeah.
yeah, it's more
And
one
it's
dimensional.
like that Lamar Jackson that gave him so much trouble, but Flacco seems like he can just turn back the clock at times. So it's, and you're just the young quarterbacks. Yeah, I might have gone the other way.
Oh, go Richardson. Yeah.
Yeah. Like just, I don't know. I'm glad it worked out because
No,
I
that's
think Flacco can turn back the clock and really catch lightning in a bottle at times.
Yeah, you know what? Now that I think about it, you're looking at Joe Flacco won comeback player of the year last year. So he's clearly not a terrible quarterback, right? Still, even at his age, he's still doing pretty well. And Anthony Richardson has never come close to, you know, a fraction of what Joe Flacco was last season yet in his career. So if I look at it from a standpoint of, oh, his legs worry me, but at the same time, put a spy on him and make him throw the ball, right? Like make sure you stop Jonathan Taylor, and then you don't really have to worry about him reading defenses or take away his first read, right? And make him really have to process being quarterback. That's what you do to all those young quarterbacks. You know, pressure them, and you make sure that it's not a simple, you know, go to your first read, screen pass, okay, and then he gets 40 yards, right? So yeah, okay.
Dude, total tangent. But when we're talking about spy, or not really spy, but containing the quarterback, I was impressed by the Colts defensive line, like coming off the block to catch Allen. Like I haven't seen that in other games this year, where it's like they're bull rushing, but they're cognizant enough of his movement that when he starts to move up in the pocket, they peel off and they catch him. And I don't think it was the speed necessarily, but they peel off at just the right time and caught him before he could really accelerate or take off, like straight out of the pocket. Did you notice that?
Oh
There were
yeah,
a couple of times.
at
I'm like,
least yeah.
there's a window. He's going. I'm like, oh man, that lineman just really heads up play.
Yeah, Josh Allen had 50 yards rushing today, but it felt like he didn't have hardly any because exactly like you said, when Josh decided in the pocket to run, those guys on the defensive end of the defensive tackle were just ready to just peel off and get him. And that's, I don't know why more people don't do that. You know, like the offensive lineman has no idea when Josh is in the pocket and he decides to run.
It just felt like they were really coached up, great awareness. Like, I'm like, man, hope other teams don't key in on that. And
I hope the Chiefs next week don't
really
realize that that's a really good strategy. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Like I did notice that during the game. I'm like, oh come on, you know, like he does this thing where he drops back, no one's open real quick. There's no one in the middle of the field. There's no linebacker spying. So shoestring tackle, or you know, or he gets wraps him up really well. I think they did a good job of stopping Allen. Even though I said just now that Allen had 50 yards on the ground, it felt like he had to work really hard for those 50 yards. It did not seem, even when he did go, there were times where it was a designed run and they were ready for him. You know, that's actually was one of my wall of fame nominees was trying to do design runs for Allen this game. It did not work. Every time they're like, oh, he's going to tuck at the ball. And there's just a sea of Colts defensive linemen and no room. And you're like, I don't think it.
Yeah, but I like how they didn't deviate from that. Like, definitely limited success, but as we saw on the touchdown and then on like the third and shorts, the fourth downs, like when the Bills really needed it, it seemed like they could. Allen's legs really factored in to the win.
Yeah, he needed it because he wasn't. Again, it's funny. Well, let's go into stats of the game real quick. One of the things that I thought, Josh Allen today passing was 22 for 37, 280 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He did have that rushing touchdown. So, not a terrible game for Josh Allen. I feel like with his game today, he came clutch when it mattered, right? Like that was his style today. Like, when it mattered, he was clutch. But other than that, he wasn't dropping dimes. And just sticks out in my head right now that pass, that wide open miss to Dalton Kincaid as he's streaking in the end zone. There's not a defender within 10 yards, and he just overthrows it. I'm like, that's a killer. It was hit or miss today, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because he was missing Keon Coleman, he was missing Amari Cooper, but there were just a few passes, especially the interceptions, where you're like, what are you doing, man? Like, it just seemed off for him. And I did hear that maybe he was dealing with a sickness or something like that. But I want to say he had a pretty good game. I mean, compared to most quarterbacks, a good game for sure. Compared to Josh Allen, not his best game. Did you get that feeling at all, or did you go in? It's fair.
Yeah, I mean, what was he going into the game like second for MVP? I don't think this necessarily helped his case, but he can certainly put the team on his back in the way that a Joe Flacco couldn't,
Oh yeah.
When the play needed to be made, you're like, he's gonna do it.
Yeah, there's very few. Just thinking about it, very few quarterbacks that have that ability to do that, like Josh Allen. Like you wouldn't say Trevor Lawrence is necessarily that way, or I'm trying to think of other good quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson can, Patrick Mahomes can, Josh Allen can, and then maybe Joe Burrow can in some ways. Probably not so much running, but there's very few quarterbacks that can just put the entire team on his back with their arm or legs or both. So, yeah, not the greatest game by Josh Allen, but definitely not his worst game. Rushing the ball, we have James Cook, 19 carries for 80 yards, 1 touchdown. I thought James Cook looked great today.
Bro, the only thing is, why you got to be like flippant into the end zone? Somebody's got to pull him aside and be like, yo.
Would you just see like a hernia coming, like, or something like that, whatever, a back injury, all of a sudden we see James Cook on the injury report. Like,
did you
back
think
injury? Is that what you're thinking?
When you
Is
do
that...
a flip, what is that, 360?
Yeah.
I don't think he gets the 360. I think he gets the 290. I don't know.
He does the part where he lands on like whatever it is on the top of his neck, C2, C4, or whatever, like those vertebrae.
Catch a cleat, and just it's be so easy to fall awkward.
Yeah, and it's not like he's falling. It's not like he's jumping into a bounce house, like an inflated sort of apparatus. It is the hard, ground. It is stadium
life
turf.
is hard enough. Why handicap yourself like that?
Dude, he's 24 years old in the best shape of his life, in the best shape that we could only dream of. And still, like, we're treating it like we're, like we're.
It didn't look good. It looked awkward.
He does that a lot, though. He does it a lot when he gets that touchdown. Just does that half barrel roll. Yeah. Captain Cook needs to batten down the hatches. Let's do something where I'm trying to think of an equivalent.
Start a campaign.
Either do it a full flip or don't do it at all. Yeah. Agreed. God forbid there's a pylon right there or something. Lands on that. James Cook mentioned 19 for 80, 1 touchdown. Josh Allen, next leading rusher. I mentioned that earlier. Mack Collins was the leading receiver for the Buffalo Bills today. Hey, shout out to Mack Collins. I'm not sure if he's going to make our Wall of Fame, but he had 4 receptions on 4 targets for 86 yards in a game where the Bills really needed some receiver help. I thought he stepped up in a big way. And, I don't love the guy. I'm not thinking that he's the best wide receiver the Bills have ever had, or even within a top 3 or 4 on this roster. But I mean, he showed up. You got to give him credit for looking the part today when easily he could have just dropped a few passes, not made that huge play down in a 44-yard catch that he made down the sidelines when Josh was running the scramble drill. I thought he looked the part today. Am I excited? Will I be more excited when Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper come back? Absolutely. But for today, I mean, shout out to Mack Collins. I thought he had a tremendous day.
Yeah, absolutely. But
Khalil
I don't like him as wide receiver
I don't
1,
like-
2, or 3. But stepped up, and that's
He
what
stepped up.
what you need. Yeah.
There's a lot of things to like about Mack Collins, right? Like his not wearing the cleats on the field like in pregame, right? Like that's kind of cool. It's different. But what I really care about is how you catch the ball and if you get open. Like it's nice to be like that. Hey, I would love for all of these guys to run like homeless shelters. Like that's nice. That would be great. Like I love that. If you can't catch a football or play football though, it's like, well, you could be my 7-year-old father then at that point. It's just, but anyway, Khalil Shakir, 6 receptions on 9 targets for 58 yards. Dawson Knox, 2 receptions on 3 targets for 40 yards. I know Dalton Kincaid went out with a knee injury earlier, so we saw a little bit more of Dawson Knox, but then he came back. Kincaid came back, luckily. Thank goodness. It was kind of, it was a little worrisome. Curtis Samuel, 4 receptions on 8 targets for 35 yards. I thought Curtis Samuel looked pretty good today. I know there's a few instances where he didn't look great, but when they fed him the ball, I thought he did a decent amount with it. I was kind of hoping that this was going to be his breakout game. It was not, but
I think Shakir never gets enough. Just his consistency is awesome, and when the Bills need him to step up in the yards after the catch, just
is he your
week in and
favorite-
week out.
Is he your favorite Bills receiver at this point? right now?
Just the effort that he exhibits. Yeah, I think so.
I think so too. I don't think it's even really necessarily that close. I think it's Khalil Shakir on a hilltop. I mean, we haven't seen Amari Cooper enough to really get a feel for that, but I think it's Khalil Shakir on a mountaintop. And then there's some guys that I like I like Dalton Kincaid. He's not
Is
sure.
that saying on a mountaintop? I've never heard that.
Yeah, you can be on a mountaintop. You've never heard of being on top of no. What is it? I don't know. What is the better saying? You're so much better at
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't even know what sayings. There's a different word for sayings. Just the zeitgeist. I don't know. So I'm just gonna start throwing out.
I mean, like an
words out
idiom, like
there. An idiom. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I felt like an idiot not knowing what the word was idiom.
Mountain.
That's how bad that was. But yeah, Khalil Shakir. I think it's he's on the
Like
mountain.
head and shoulders.
Head and shoulders above. He's at the white cap of the mountain, and then these guys are kind of like still climbing their way up to that white cap on that part. So like I like Dalton Kincaid, but he still has not proven nearly as much as Khalil Shakir has. I like Dawson Knox. He's had drops issues. I like Curtis Samuel. Still hasn't, I don't know, caught more than 3 or 4 balls in a game yet. Mack Collins, like we said, we like his vibe. Like he's the vibe wide receiver, but he's not gonna scare defenses.
When you go through this, it's always ranked on success. It just makes me realize how transactional you are as a human.
Me or everyone? Because
I guess like you, like it's a little microcosm of everyone. Like, man, I must be. Is that like just football fan? And then I'm like, huh? Is that
no? Just because
friendship?
we're talking football.
Okay,
like if we're talking about somebody, that I want as a friend, right? Like if I want to be buddies with you, well, I don't need you to be good.
You're
at football.
still evaluating, like, oh, what can you do for me?
Mike hasn't answered my text in 2 days. Like I don't even know if we're still friends. Basically, yeah. Everything's a little transactional, a little bit, in a good way. I mean, think about your relationship with your significant other. Like there's a transaction there, one way or another, whether it's emotional, physical, mental, something, financial. Like there's something to it. Isn't that sad though that it's like that?
Cold. World
Like
is a cold place.
Even if I break, it's so cold. Even if I break out, like your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your wife or husband or whatever, it's just your parents. Will they die someday and leave me any money? I've been watching too much Succession, so.
Well, I feel that's like a evolutionary biology thing, right? Like parents are like you feel that oxytocin like just rush, like, oh, I have to take care of this human to pass on your genes. But like it's interesting, like, why do kids feel that for their parents? Because there's not like an evolutionary advantage to that. Like, why the hell do you? And your contention is it's because you're hoping for an inheritance. Maybe you solved it. I think that's the question that's plagued people. You just solved it.
That's a good point. I don't think everyone's is inheritance. It is not mine. It is not mine. I'm just talking out of my backside. Mom and Dad, if you're watching this, definitely leave my sisters out of, instead of doing a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, we could just do like half, 1/4, 1/4. So
you got to make a move for that sweet executor money. Boost you up to a half.
I am executor of the will. I don't know what my actual, if there's a lawyer listening to this, what are my actual rights? I know I could just Google it right now. That'd probably be the smart thing, but I'd be like, hey, can I just check out the will real quick? Like, go to the law firm. Can I just check? I just want to see what, like, what's up. And, just I ask for like a monthly update from the law firm. Yeah, just want to make sure nothing changed, like nothing. At least worse for me changed, right? Why would I care what happens to?
And every time you poke them, it costs you $1,000, and that's just pleading. Well, Nate's contacted our office 640 times.
Even with paralegal rate.
Owe...
Yeah. You guys are paying $100 an hour or $1,000 an hour for every single time Nate emails you and needs a response. Yeah, it went from being like, let's say it was like $50,000, it went down to being like, we owe them money at the time of their death. Nate, I'm sorry, I didn't know. It's a classic family response. I didn't know it. Grandma died. Nobody told me. Ty Johnson, three receptions on 3 targets for 32 yards. I like Ty Johnson a lot. I know that the Bills have 3 really good running backs, and I know it's James Cook, and then it's they mix in basically Ray Davis or Ty Johnson. I like Ty Johnson a lot. I know he's more of a receiving threat at this point, at least what they're using him for, but he comes in clutch at the end of the games. And I don't know. Is this the best? This might be the best running back group that the Bills have ever had. And I like Ty Johnson a lot. I know he doesn't get a lot of run or a lot of looks, but I just had to mention this just now. I don't know how often I'm going to get a chance to mention Ty Johnson in the season. Dalton Kincaid, 2 receptions on 5 targets for 24 yards. And that's it for the Bills side. I'm going to rush through the Colts side. They had Joe Flacco's 26 for 35, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Opened the game up. First play of the game, interception. So that was Joe Flacco's day, but he pulled it together, man, just like a true vet does. He had 9 incompletions altogether, and 3 of them were for interceptions. And they were still pretty darn close to making it a game. So Jonathan Taylor, 21 attempts, 114 yards for Taylor. I mean, he looked great. Mike, the Bills are doing their best to try to stop the run. But part of me thinks that the Bills can hang with teams that can throw the ball. But if you really look at the teams that they've struggled with this season, has not been because they're throwing the ball at great rates and the Bills just can't keep up with them. It's usually because they can run the ball. I think the Texans game is the only outlier for that, but the Ravens game, this game, if they don't shut down Jonathan Taylor, I mean, he walks away with $180 and 3 touchdowns, and the Bills lose this game. They don't make adjustments, right? He had that 58-yard run earlier in the game, which I want to say was a little bit due to Damar Hamlin in that one, but we'll get to that later. Alec Pierce is the leading receiver for the Colts, 4 receptions on 7 targets for 81 yards and a touchdown, that garbage touchdown at the end of the game. Josh Downs, 7 receptions on 10 targets for 72 yards. A.D. Mitchell, 6 receptions on 6 targets for 71 yards. I know that was a guy that the Bills fans were looking at in the draft, A.D. Mitchell, Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. I remember we talked about it. Didn't end up getting drafted, obviously, but he looked good tonight. So it's always interesting to see these guys play on other teams, and you wish, like, oh, what could have been? So that's about it for the Colts. So that was stats of the game. Now let's go into our Sweet Sassy Molassy plays of the game. Sweet Sassy Molassy plays of the game. Now there were some really cool plays. Mike, this is probably one of the tougher Sweet Sassy Molassy play of the games because the Bills had 3 interceptions. They had 4 takeaways altogether. There's a fumble recovery as well. And I mean, so many good plays to pick from. I know I'm going to have a lot of honorable mentions, but is there one play that stuck out to you in your mind that was your Sweet Sassy Molassy play of the game? I know which one you're trying not to say because it's too easy. First play of the game,
It feels
Joe Flacco.
we're such prisoners of the moment, so it would be such a departure to take the first play of the game. But when the Bills had the ball first, could do absolutely nothing, and then to have Taron Johnson like pick it and with a great return, like you and I are probably like watching Dion highlights on YouTube or Ed Reed, like, oh my gosh, he's not going down. He's taking it to the house. Like, yeah, that really galvanized it. And like, I was really surprised the Colts came back and took the lead, I guess. But that to me really, if the Colts were allowed to get a lead and then just pound the ball, I think you could have had a different outcome. And that, yeah, that pick six for me would be the play of the game.
Wait, what did you call it? A pick six? Didn't you mean the taint? The taint?
Serving it up for you.
Taron Johnson taint? The taint Johnson? Taron the robber baron Johnson? He's a taint machine. Oh, that was so I got to go with that one as well for my Sweet Sassy Molassie play the game. The taint was amazing. It was
there were
so
a lot
good.
of good plays though, like you said.
There were a lot of plays, and we'll get to some honorable mentions. I have a list of them, but I mean that was what a great way. I mean, it was such a good looking taint because it wasn't one of those things where he just got the ball and went down, or he had a straight shot where it was walk in touchdown. He probably ran. He had 20 yards to get to the end zone. He probably ran about 50 yards to get there. Just a lot of maneuvering. Just such a good athlete. It's hard not to love Taron Johnson and everything he does for this team. And we're going to get to that a little bit later, but the taint was easily, I mean, it's so often, it's not often at all. That
Easily, but yeah, I had trouble with that Allen, the run for the touchdown to put the Bills on top for good. That was a
good run.
Too.
That was a good run. The Allen 13-yard touchdown run to go up 17-13 in the second quarter.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good one. That was a good honorable mention, Mike. Is that your honorable mention or is that your true play?
Yeah, I guess so.
You're not second guessing yourself, are you?
I was surprised there wasn't well, didn't you think that there could have been a penalty for hitting Allen late? Like just all the way through the end zone, then out of bounds in the end zone? Like I thought that was too much.
It's funny. Real time.
Any other quarterback would get that call.
Any other quarterback, guy runs in, the guy's got him, and then he still goes down. I don't know how that wasn't called a penalty. I will say, however, an instant replay, and Josh Allen is accused of flopping by every other fan base, mostly just Chiefs and Dolphins fans, but they always call him flopping, and he does. Like he'll pull a LeBron James, right? He'll just like, it did look a little bit like that. So I'm kind of not surprised. It looked a little bit like the guy was trying to hold him up a little bit, I guess, but it wasn't, a pull down, tear down, like throw down, like he wanted to hurt him, right? Like if anything, he kind of just momentum.
He
should have let go
through the end zone and the sideline.
Oh yeah, he should.
There's one, but both.
It should have been called. I'm just trying to be.
And there's dudes like punching him in the head, and there's the slide where he's a decent run, first down, slides, starts to get up, and somebody jumps on him.
Someone jumps on him. I know, what the hell. Those were the three plays for sure that stood out to me. The tackle in the end zone out of bounds, even though he clearly had the touchdown. There was, and not only that, Mike, I want to go back to that one for 2 seconds. The fact that they didn't call that is one thing. That's kind of BS. But the fact that they called Spencer Brown for getting in the guy's face after that, it wasn't even like he shoved him. Yeah. It was nothing physical. He got in his face. Like, you can't talk to guys now when they hit your quarterback. Like, I'm at a loss for words with some of these. And then you said, like, that one player that was taking haymakers and Josh Allen, not even, he's trying to go for the ball. Well, where does he think the ball is? 6'8" in the air? Like, what is he thinking? How that wasn't called? As far as that's the thing that gets me about these, that play, and you mentioned where Allen was clearly sliding and the guy still landed on top of him from behind. It wasn't like he was even meeting him ahead. He fell on his head. Like, how you don't call that is beyond me, because it's one thing if they're like, oh, that's the way the refs are calling the game. They're just letting things slide. They were not letting things slide at all. They were calling some ticky-tack holding penalty on Rasul Douglas that we never saw a replay for. I already mentioned the Spencer Brown play. There were several of those plays where it's like, okay, now you guys are calling everything. No, just some of them.
Yeah, very frustrating.
Yeah, that guy. What was nice, what was poetic justice for Josh Allen was, I can't remember the Colts player's name. I'm not even going to bother looking it up because it's not worth it. It's like he ended up stiff arming him to get a first down late in the game. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't get a touchdown, but he got that first down and he literally stiff armed the guy to the ground, which was pretty cool. I posted that on social media. I made a meme out of it. If you guys are following us at CTW Pod, definitely check it out on there. I think it's got over 100,000 views already. So I did what I did is I mashed up the part where he's taking haymakers to the head, and then I imposed Josh Allen's head on Michael Jordan. He said, "Oh," he's like, "So you can do that shit to me? All right, that's it. Now I'm gonna take it personally." And then it went into him stiff arming him. Right? He took it personally.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, if Josh Allen was any smaller of a guy, he'd have like 2 alike concussions from all these other hits he's taking. I don't know if this is an NFL mandate or referees.
If your size impacts your head.
True, probably not. A hit to the head still probably hurts either way. Yeah, that was frustrating. I have a couple of honorable mentions for Sweet Sassy Molassie play of the game before we move on from this one. You mentioned the Allen 13-yard touchdown run. I love that one. I wanted to give credit to Alec Anderson, though, on that kickoff return for recovering that fumble that took like 2 minutes for them to take everyone off the pile. I did not think the Bills had that one, Mike. I don't know if you thought that. I thought for sure that it was going for the Colts on that one.
I thought it was really curious how it was announced. Like, hey, Buffalo recovered, it's their ball, and then they're still fighting. Like normally it's like you're pulling guys out and then you give the signal, right? But it seemed I was surprised that they made that announcement.
Yeah,
all that was going on.
Me too. That seemed a little early to do that.
Premature, for sure.
Premature.
But loved it.
Loved it. Yeah, it usually
out.
doesn't turn that way. They're like, yeah, Colts ball. It's like, wait a minute. There's still guys on the ground. Yeah, Alec Anderson. So definitely honorable mention for Alec Anderson for recovering that fumble, because that was the play, that was the possession that you mentioned where the Bills went back up. And because of that, the Bills just, the Colts just scored a field goal. The Bills are down 10-13. If the Colts get the ball back right there, deep in Bills territory, I mean, this might be a different game. You're talking about Jonathan Taylor just running up the score, just being the Bills being able to stay, or the Colts being able to stay ahead enough so that they can run Jonathan Taylor, 2 out of 3 plays every single down. That changes the game completely. Whereas opposed to now they have to throw the ball, right? Like then you make them one-dimensional and it's a different game at some point when they're down by 2 scores with only a little bit of time left. So that was one of my favorite games. Obviously, I mentioned the Hollins 44-yard touchdown, or not the touchdown catch, but the catch on the Allen rollout, the scramble drill before the end of the half. That helped the Bills get to the 40, or the field goal before the end of the half. So they went up 20-13. The taint by Taron Johnson. I mean, after that, the series after that, Austin Johnson had an interception. I thought we were going to see a big man taint. Okay, I haven't seen a taint from a big guy in a while. Can't remember the last time I saw it. I think it would have been a thing of beauty. Seen a taint from Austin Johnson. He deserves it. Let's see. And then, also, I mentioned Taron Johnson with the taint earlier in the game. He had that sack on Flacco in the third quarter to start. He looked great. Dude, the Bills coming out of the third quarter, man, on defense especially, dude, forget about it. Like, they are lights out. So Rousseau had the strip, and then after that, the Bills punted down to the Colts 4-yard line. Rousseau stripped the ball from Flacco, and then Hamlin recovered it. Damar Hamlin recovered it. And then Allen threw a touchdown immediately right thereafter. How frustrating was that? It's like, oh, right. What'd you call that, Mike? The IFR? Interception after fumble recovery? IFR? But then after that, in the third quarter, the Bills are up 20-13. It's still a game at that point. Allen throws an interception. On the next drive, Flacco is sacked on 4th and 2 by the newly acquired defensive tackle Quentin Jefferson. That would have been my Sweet Sassy Molassie play of the game if it wasn't recency bias. It is that sack by Quentin Jefferson. But without it, I still give it to Taron Johnson for starting the game like that. So, Mike, those were Sweet Sassy Molassie plays of the game. let's go into Wall of Fame and Wall of Shame. Let's start off with the Wall of Fame. Mike, is there someone that just sticks out to you in this one? Who do you put on your Wall of Fame?
I think Taron Johnson had an amazing day. He almost had that second pick. Man, I think that would have just cemented him as like its defensive player of the week. But you already talked about Allen, top 3 quarterback week in and week out, singular ability to put the team on his back, but not one of his better performances with the turnovers. Who do you got?
Well, I got to mention this stat real quick. Josh Allen ended up beating O.J. Simpson's rushing touchdown record today. So even though it wasn't his greatest game, and I don't put him on the Wall of Fame, I mean it's a huge achievement by Josh Allen. What is he, like 28? He's already beaten a guy that had 2,000 yards rushing in one season. That's incredible. Yeah, he's only behind Thurman Thomas now on the Bills' all-time touchdown record. I'm going to give it to Taron Johnson as well. Mike, is Taron Johnson the best draft pick the Bills have had that's not named Josh Allen? I mean, they've had some good draft picks. Like Deion Dawkins is a good draft pick. Greg Rousseau is a good draft pick. Matt Milano is a good draft pick. But as far as like the Bean era goes, because those guys were drafted before Bean got here, I think I have to give it to Taron Johnson. I think he is the best player the Bills have drafted since that's not named Josh Allen, just because of how good he is, how impactful he is, and how he makes that defense better. And when he's not playing, it's noticeable.
That's high praise. I can't disagree, though.
That's high praise. All right. Yeah, I like honorable mention, though, to, and this might sound weird, but Tyler Bass. Tyler Bass looked good today. He's kind of picking up from last week's.
He looks good, and you love to see it, but NFL kickers should make all those kicks, should they not?
They should, but he was 3 for 3 for field goals, 3 for 3 for extra points. Yes.
Nothing in the 50s, right?
No, I think a 47-yarder was his longest one, I believe.
Yeah, yep, love the consistency, but hard to get.
47's not good enough for you, Mike? He hit a 61-yarder last week. What, is that good enough for you? Sorry you can't hit him every week. Jeez, you are transactional. You're right, man. That is. He's pissed now, guys. All right, sorry.
Mike. 4 of 4, I would give it to him. But 3, that's my line.
Okay, 4 of 4. Okay, you got to be good 4 of 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I forgot to mention, so what's really cool is every once in a while, like I just somehow comes up that, we do a podcast for the Buffalo Bills. I don't mention it to anyone. I don't go out of my way to talk about it, but I was doing this thing for one of my kids, extracurricular activities, and somehow it came up that we did a podcast. So this guy, Jay, really cool guy, he mentioned it was funny. I mentioned it briefly like over a year ago that, we
is that a
no, it's actually his real name. It's hey. it's Ray. So Ray texts me and he's just like, hey, can I, I'm not on Twitter or anything, but can I text you my Sweet Sassy last to play the game or whatever? I was like, absolutely, man. So his Sweet Sassy last to play the game, Jay's was Allen scramble on 2nd and long from our own 4-yard line to get the first down. That was a good one. Wall of Fame was Mack Collins in his shoeless ways. So that I had to give a shout out to Jay. It's funny. Like I said, I mentioned it and don't think about it. I've had other people though, randomly. It's funny that, friends of friends or, just like friends of my wife or something that somehow mention it. Like, oh, you do a podcast. Somehow it comes up. I'm like, yeah, it's this. I don't like talking about it. It's not my thing. I like doing it. I love talking with you. I love talking with the audience. I love talking with Bills Mafia. But I don't like talking. If people want to talk Bills with me, I won't shut up about it. But I don't mention that we do the podcast in general. So it was really cool you brought this up. It's funny. This is Jay right here. I know it just comes up as Facebook user. Something's going on with our live stream, but he went to go pick up money for this extracurricular event and he forgot the money. It's hilarious. Just said it's all he talks about. I won't shut up about it. Actually, it's funny. Did that live event over at Resurrection Brewery. Was it Reinvention Brewery? It was Reinvention Brewing in Manchester, Shortsville. They're like, oh, guy, you want to come in and talk Bills for a half hour? Like, yeah, sure. It ended up being like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. Didn't shut up, but yeah, it's funny. Yeah. So thanks. Shout out to Jay for that. And all the other listeners, of course. We're going to read some of the tweets now. We did our Wall of Fame. Real quick, I got to mention Chad's Wall of Fame. He gave it to Taron Johnson. to get the game momentum shifted. That awesome pick six. Awesome to see the stadium erupt with "Let's Go Buffalo" chants. Great game to see in person in Indy today. Chad was at the game today. He sent some pictures. I retweeted it. That was really cool to see. And I know that Bills Mafia had showed up. I was listening to the pregame show. Heard that the Bills fans were just taking over Indianapolis. Bills Mafia travels. Of course, we relocate a lot. That helps with Bills Mafia traveling. But yeah. All right. So let's do this. Mike, do you have any hot takes for this game before I go into Bills Mafia's hot take?
Go for it.
Okay. So after every Bills game, I say Buffalo Bills win or loss. What is your hot take after this victory? If you're not following us, please do. We're at CTW Pod, is in Circling the Wagons Pod. And of course I do it. The game was pretty much over. I said 30-13. And sure enough, Joe Flacco throws a garbage touchdown, so it makes me look like an idiot. Here we show Chad Labrie here with his son in the Colts game, taking pictures with his son in the stadium. Great pictures. Slow start by the offense in the first quarter, but Taron Johnson's pick six set the tone for the rest of the game. Great victory to see live today. Go Bills. That's awesome that you got to see there, man. See it there live. Buffalo Dill. It's a Dalton 30-20. Yeah, thanks, Buffalo Dill. Thanks, man. If there's one thing social media does better than anything else is pointing out any mistake you make grammatically or statistically or anything, right? Buffalo Dill says Dalton Kincaid is either having a sophomore slump or he isn't worth the 1 and 4 we spent on him. That is an excellent hot take. It definitely makes you wonder for sure. If you're going to take a guy in the first round, you want him to be much more of the offense than he really is. And I don't know if it's a sophomore slump as far as something that Dalton Kincaid is not doing on it of his own right, or if it's something to the effect of Josh Allen and Dalton Kincaid just haven't worked on that chemistry a lot. They just don't have it. And why they don't have it is an issue. I think that's something that they're definitely going to need to work on in this offseason. Because I agree with Buffalo Dill. Right now, he is not worth that 1st and 4th. We're just still banking on potential. And he's not a great blocker, so you're banking on his receiving potential, and he hasn't caught a lot of passes, and he hasn't caught a lot of touchdowns. He's kind of like, you could probably get the same output from a 5th-round tight end at this point. So let's see, Jason Statham writes, this team is all around better than last year. With Milano, Cooper, Coleman to come back from injury, we are only going to get better. We'll give the Chiefs their first loss next week. Absolutely. It's a very winnable game for sure. Not that it matters. It doesn't matter as far as what I think the team will do when the playoffs come, because it'll be a completely separate game, a completely separate time of the year. But I think they have a really good chance to walk away with this and cement their chance to with the number 1 seed in the AFC, which would be huge. Phil Masterson says, ugly game by the offense. Great to see they can win ugly if necessary. Great game by the defense. Groot is about to make himself some money. Yeah, you know what's funny, Mike? And I don't know if you feel the same way. I like Groot a lot. I want to say I love him. I think he does great things. I think he is the best defensive end on the Bills right now. What'd you say? Oh, yeah. My wife's like, sounds like you should marry him. You like him so much. Hey, I don't know if he's single, all right? Can't just be saying that. So there's a lot to like about him. The one knock I will have for him is that he doesn't get there consistently enough. He's going to get paid as probably a top 5 defensive end. He just hasn't proven specifically that he's on that level with those top tier pass rushers. There's still time to do that, and he has a 5th-year option, so there's still another season for him to prove that. But I like him a lot. He's going to make himself a lot of money no matter what. So I'm just hoping that he can prove just a little bit more. I just want a little bit more. It's almost like Ed Oliver when they signed him to that contract. I wanted a little bit more, and he showed that last season. We just haven't seen a ton of it this season. So that's another topic, though. Ed Oliver. Big Mike says, if it wasn't for the defense creating multiple turnovers, this game might have ended very, very disappointingly for the Bills and Bills Mafia. Hey, man. Big Mike, no lies detected there. Christy M says they're going to need to beat the Chiefs, the refs, and Lady Luck next week. Absolutely. It's a tall order. It's a lot of opponents to play against. Kev Rad says sloppy. That's not going to do it versus the Chiefs. Pray for everyone's wrists. Still counts. Stack W's. There is a part of me that thinks that the Bills can't win against the Chiefs playing like they did the last few weeks with all the penalties. At the same time, though, as long as the refs don't call, I shouldn't even say that. It's probably going to happen at this point. I think that the Bills, I mean, I'm not going to be surprised if the Bills win next week. Hopefully they get Keon Coleman back. If not, and Amari Cooper, if they lose both of those guys next week, I'm much less optimistic. Big Mike also says the offensive tackles need to pull their head out of their asses, mostly Spencer Brown. I don't know. I like Spencer Brown today. Koala Bear Khan. Koala Bear Khan left us a review on Apple Podcasts, which I'm going to read later. The defense, although off at times, had good takeaways, but the offense was a mixed bag. But Allen was clutch when he had to be, but missed some opportunities to put the game away. A bit uncharacteristic of what we've seen from him this season, but a muddy win is still a win. Yeah, absolutely. We just can't have him do that. It's funny. This is the time of year to have those wins, right? Like to have those wins and still be off a little bit. It's not going to be that way when you're hitting the postseason, week 18, week 17, week 18, going into the postseason. Like you don't want to be making the same mistakes. You hope that Josh Allen is playing the best football of his life at that point. Lord Eric, the former Riverfish, says Jordan Phillips is out of shape, power walking after Flacco. Yeah, I don't know. He might get called back down to the practice squad or something until he can get better shape before that. We'll see. We'll see what happens. He did just come off IR for the Cowboys, so maybe his out of shape isn't because he's been just sitting on the couch eating Doritos. Maybe it's because he's injured, so he hasn't had a chance to really exercise the way he wants to. But yeah, I noticed that too, Lord Eric. AJ Tharp, I do not like what Jonathan Taylor does every time he plays us. I like him so little. I do not like childhood actor Jonathan Taylor Thomas by association. How can you not
That's
like
good.
JTT, right?
It's a good tweet.
That is a really good tweet. AJ Tharp brings it week in and week out. I almost did. I like him so much. I do not like Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Yeah. Nostalgia, man. Charles Byrne, Go Bill says, Bass is back in form for now. I want to say for now. He didn't say that. I say for now. Things can change on a turn of a dime. What's the term? What's the idiom, Mike? And the flip of a coin. And the turn of a
I'm like a bad penny. I always turn up.
face off.
That one?
Face off. No, I just want to keep you. You're talking face off. That was face off, right? Is that Nicolas Cage? Like a bad penny, I always turn up.
Indiana
What
Jones.
was the other one he said?
Oh.
I could eat a peach for hours. When like 12, 13-year-old me is like, oh man, what does that
Like,
mean? These aren't that hard to chew. Mom. Hey, Mom. What is Nicolas Cage's character say when he says he could eat a peach for hours? Like, why wouldn't you just chew it? Why wouldn't you eventually swallow it? I don't understand.
Right before he shoots the person in the head and throws her out of the plane.
Well, she double crossed him, Mike. What do you?
Dude,
changed.
They did not. Their bodies look totally different. All they swapped was their faces.
No, they redid their bodies. Remember, they redid them in the
But
lab.
you can't like their builds are different.
Well, that's what the thing was like they took fat out of the one guy, out of John Travolta's character, and then they gave it to Nicolas Cage's character.
Do you think they did it everywhere? Wouldn't you be like, oh, it's probably not going to matter where you have clothes. So why would we screw around with 80% of the body?
Do you
do like hands, face? That's it. Dick around with
dick around
genitalia.
I was gonna say the first time the wife sees it, that could go completely different. Like it'd be like the surgeons did not talk about that when they were changing bodies and faces. They weren't like, we got it like 70% right. Like nobody will notice. Both of them absolutely sleep with the others, like significant others at one point. Let's see. Dude, you know what? Funny that you
might be time for, I forgot. We might be time for a rewatch.
I would love to rewatch it. I think it's time. We got to rewatch that one. We got to rewatch Gladiator 1 and then see Gladiator 2 in IMAX. So we'll just make a whole day of it. Just rewatch all the movies. You know what I thought of today specifically? Face Off. Face Off. Okay. There was a scene in Face Off I legitimately thought of with you because you said your aunt loves that scene so much. Do you remember which scene I'm talking about? It was the very beginning. It was the opening sequence when Nicolas Cage.
When they're singing?
Yeah, when they're singing. So if you don't remember that part of the movie, for those that are listening or watching, there's a scene where there's like a choir of girls. I could have swore they're like high school girls, right? Like they must be in college because if they're in high school, it's a terrible terrible, like, predatorial sort of scene. But he he dresses up as like a priest or something and starts, dancing around, while the girls are singing. The one makes eyes with him. And then he kind of like, walks up behind her and he just like, yeah, he basically dry humps her, from behind. And that scene, I thought about how crazy that was. Cause at the time, as a kid, I'm like, whoa, like what's going on? And then you were like, oh, my aunt really likes that scene.
I have no recollection of that at all.
You don't at all. That's like the one thing
Who would like that scene?
I've met your aunt several times, and that's
Maybe
my biggest memory
confused.
of her. No. That's the only. I literally have a direct correlation between, and you have like 5 aunts, and it's one specific aunt that, and yeah, and it's funny because it kind of gives you an insight to that person because it's a really like, it's a pretty hardcore scene, and
I think you're overselling it.
I say you talk to her at Thanksgiving in a couple of weeks and be like, hey, Aunt so-and-so, remember Face Off? Do you remember what your favorite scene was from that movie? And it might take her a second, Mike, as she looks up to the ceiling, but as soon as she looks down and her eyes widen, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and we'll know that I was right about that one. It's just like, I love that scene. All right. It's a good scene. Anyway, where the hell were we? Oh, yeah. Bill Lasso says, the Bills game. Sweet Sassy Molassy, Bill Lasso says, play of the game was the Mack Collins catch slide and out of bounds play. Yeah, that's another thing, Mike. We didn't mention that. I'm glad Bill did. Not only was it a scramble play, 44 yards, field goal before the end of the half, but because he was smart enough to go out of bounds. I feel like that's something that's been lost on the Bills for years. He's just like, oh, I'm just going to try to get 2 more yards and run the clock out instead of just trying to go right out of bounds, right? They fight. It's not even like they fight and they get a touchdown. They just get 2 more yards, right? Fight and get 2 more yards. So heads up play, but I still don't think we are scheming receivers correctly. There was one play where the out route was open for the first and the receiver went in instead and we don't convert. Yeah, I'd have to watch the tape on that one, but I don't not believe you, Bill. I think you're probably right. I think it's a combination of that potentially, and then also the fact that the Bills didn't have Amari Cooper and Keon Coleman. Big R says we live in a blessed era where the team is 8-2 with all the injuries and it being a reset year. That's a great point. The benefits of having a true franchise quarterback. Oh, Mike, we didn't do Wall of Shame real quick. I forgot about that. Real quick, Wall of Shame. You have one? Officiating?
I got nothing.
Okay, I got one. Damar Hamlin. But then at the same time, Damar Hamlin redeemed himself with that fumble recovery. Yeah, I think it was more just that Jonathan Taylor run, that 58-yard run, and he was the reason why that broke open. And luckily, Taylor Rapp, I didn't give an honorable mention to Taylor Rapp, too, by the way. Not only did he stop he had 2 touchdown saving tackles on the game, he also had that interception towards the end of the game, too. So shout out to Taylor Rapp. He is an honorable mention for Wall of Fame. I thought he had a great game. I'm really liking what I see from Taylor Rapp. I'm glad to have him. So Damar Hamlin, though, I think I don't necessarily think I think it's still officiating for Wall of Shame. I think that I'm worried. I'm worried that, especially since they cut Mike Edwards, that the teams might pick on him. But I do like overall. I like that he got the fumble recovery right after they were talking about Joe Flacco stealing the comeback player of the year over Damar Hamlin. It's almost like he had his eye. I took that personally, and I took that personally.
For sure. I don't mind Flacco winning that at all.
No, but it was interesting. I don't remember Flacco saying that he shouldn't have won it. That it should have been Damar Hamlin. But even if he didn't mean it, that was the best thing to possibly say.
Oh, of course.
Genius. What a great guy.
Stop just short of like refusing to accept it.
Yeah, just like, I'm going to give it to him. No. Let's not go crazy. Yeah. Well, there is a monetary. Well, let's not go nuts. Anakin Skywalker said there will be no undefeated teams after next Sunday. Bring it the F on. Go Bills. Love it. Michael Graham says Tyler Bass is back. He looked confident out there, and his kicks looked pure. They looked pure. Doesn't that sound like sounds like it's out of like Game of Thrones or something? It's like his control of the dragons was pure. He says, I'm happy for him. Hell of a performance from the defense. Bills are figuring they're face off. The the copying of the genitalia from Nicolas Cage to John Travolta was pure. I'm happy for him. Hell of a performance from the defense. Bills are figuring out how to win games in different ways. And I think that's what makes them a very scary team. Go Bills. Yeah, finding out different ways for sure. That's another thing, man. Like I give credit to Sean McDermott. A lot of people wanted him fired. And I mean, how do you think that this like never say die, win any way you possibly can, even if it's ugly, comes from? I think there's a lot of credit, obviously the players and execution and the coaching staff, but that's Sean McDermott's that's his mantra, man. Mike Richardson says we played like we're looking forward to KC, but still rolled the donkeys. Personally speaking, I'm glad we didn't waste an outstanding offensive performance today. We're saving it, man. We're saving the offensive performance for next week. Defense once again stands up. This is from Connor Rutledge. Defense once again stands up in the second half. Allen didn't have a great game. Brady did too many of the quicker screens, and Indianapolis started to pick up on that. Yeah, they had some really bad screens. The Bills cannot execute a screenplay on offense. I will say they finally figured out a way to defend it on defense, which is great, but they still can't execute one. They haven't been able to do that since Chan Gailey, basically. Connor says the loss of Cooper, Coleman, and Kincaid was tough. Glad Holland stepped up and proved he was worth the signing. Absolutely. All right, a couple more. Juanito says, ugly win, but they're so much better. But they're so much better than pretty losses. Yeah, absolutely. Just ask hashtag Wody. Houday. Oh, hashtag Houday. Wody. Who's Wody? Houday. A lot of work still ahead, but 8-2 ain't no joke. Absolutely. Yeah, ask the Bengals fans after that little loss, or that loss to the Ravens on Thursday Night Football. So, yeah, this was a lot of fun talking about this one, Mike. Anything else you want to leave the listeners with, or any other tangents you want to go on? Speaking of face-off or anything like that, before we end this one?
No, I don't think so. Looking forward to doing it next week. Win or lose, I don't know. What do you think? Like, even if you lose next week, I'm super encouraged about the whole season. It's not the playoffs. Just got to get to the playoffs.
Exactly.
Love the number one seed, but
getting in hot is more important to me than getting the number one season. But also, what's more important than both of those things is just health, right? Like, the Bills have been, as bad as they've been with some injuries, for the most part, it hasn't been that bad. Like, there was a scare when Spencer Brown went down with a knee injury and Dalton Kincaid, but both guys came back in the game. That's usually not the case with knee injuries. We got lucky there. But yeah, all those things. I'd rather get in and be hot than get that one seed. I don't care if we win next week, as long as we're in and doing well, and then, just stay away from the injuries. Get Matt Milano back, and now you're talking a team that can make a good run. I mean, the Chiefs are close to losing almost every single game. The Bills, it feels like if the Bills can just put up 24 points, I feel like they could win it. And it's in Buffalo next week, so I think Bills Mafia should be excited about that. But yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, but
so,
the Bills can definitely, like, they've done it in years past. Like, it's great to beat them in the regular season, but that doesn't mean a lot.
No, it doesn't. You're right. It means nothing. The Bills could win next week. They take them down to 9-1, and they go into the bye on a high. And yeah, you're right. It doesn't matter. We've seen this happen. The Bills have been able to beat the Chiefs in the regular season. They just can't get over that hump. They just can't get to the mountaintop, Mike. These kids stand on the mountaintop, look down at everyone, or whatever idiom makes sense. Oh, real quick. So we are doing a giveaway. We're giving away the Daryl Talley signed jersey. We're going to do a live on a live stream next week. The only thing that you have to do in order to be eligible for it is you had to have left us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or leave a comment on Facebook or YouTube during the live stream, so that I can obviously subscribe wherever you can, YouTube, everything like that. But if you leave us a comment there, you're also in the running. This is one of the latest reviews that we got from Koala Bear Khan, which we read their tweet on the podcast. They say, definitely amazing, fun, lighthearted Bills podcast. That's a lot of great adjectives. Definitely a very casual and cool listen to after Bills games. Love their segments of Sweet Sassy Molassy, plays of the game, stats of the game, and Wall of Fame and Shame, and Gettysburg play. Keep it up. Thank you for Koala Bear Khan. You are now eligible for that, which we'll be reading. So the other thing is, besides leaving the comment on the YouTube channel, or I guess we'll do Facebook too, sure, on the Facebook stream, in leaving a podcast review is that you have to be listening or watching after that game so that when you win, you can DM me or message me, email me, and let me know that you won, because you have to consistently watch. I'm not going to track you down. And sometimes, depending on the username, I don't know if I could track you down. So yeah, so make sure to get in for that. Thank you guys all for listening. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Shout out to Jay for the comments and everything. And yeah, so signing off for Mike.
Go Bills. See you next week.
Signing off for me, Nate. Go Bills. Thank you guys again for listening. We'll talk to you guys after the Chiefs game.
Thank you for listening to the Circling the Wagons podcast. Download and subscribe to us in your favorite podcast service. Email us at ctwpod@gmail.com. That's Charlie Tango Whiskey Pod @gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at CTWPod. And most importantly, go Bills!
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, Nate.
Well, listen, the whole show is called Circling the Wagons. Say no more. I love it.